Hey, Anton.
Yeah, Margaret?
You know people don't talk about enough?
What?
I don't know if I necessarily agree with Lisa about Simon's moral high horse. Welcome to People Don't Talk About Young Royals. I'm Margaret. My pronouns are they, them.
And I'm Anton. My pronouns are he, they.
And we're people here to discuss the show our friends are sick of hearing us talk about.
If that sounds like you, stick around. If your friend sent you this podcast out of a desperate attempt to get you to watch Young Royals, take this as a sign.
Go watch Young Royals, then come back to this podcast.
Margaret, what are we talking about today?
Today we will be having a character discussion of Simon in Season 1, Episode 5, having decided we have no choice but to stand.
Woohoo! In this discussion, we won't be summarizing the plot of the episode because we already did that. If you need to want a refresher, head back 6 episodes in our feed to our most recent This Week in Alershka for a full breakdown. This episode discussion will likely be all over the place, so strap in. You've been warned.
Can we not go in order? Because I just want to get right into my cold open.
No, we don't need to go in order for this one. I think, especially considering this is still a standing, we do need to get this out of the way.
Yeah. Okay. So, Lisa in interviews, don't ask me which interviews, I can't remember, has mentioned that Simon in her mind has this really, really high moral code that he upholds throughout the, at least first season. I think she may have extended it to further seasons, but we're only talking about this season right now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I agree with her. Mostly because of how quickly he jumps from, okay, I supplied alcohol for this school party, whatever. I know it's technically not legal, but like, I don't see the biggest deal in that, to I am now selling what are likely either narcotics or ADHD meds. Either way, controlled substances, at least in the United States. Except I'm not selling them, I'm forcing somebody else to sell them to pay back a debt. Now, it's not ideal. I'm gonna be honest. And I can think of about 8 different ways off the top of my head that are not forcing somebody else to deal drugs for you to pay them back. That's pretty much it. That's pretty much...
I don't know. I think... I could be... It's been a while since I've heard those interviews, but I feel like the way that I would stretch... I mean, disclaimer, I am a firm believer in death of the author, which is the idea that, like, once some creative piece is out there, like, what the creator has to say about it, like, doesn't... it has a you only need to, like,
you're free to interpret it as you see fit.
Yeah, you're free to interpret it as you see fit. Like, it's like you can be like, you can't quote unquote like contradict what the person who created it said, because the creative projects are so multifaceted. It that just makes sense.
Yeah.
I will say, I think from I remember of the wording of those interviews, it was more along the lines of he sees himself as having a very high moral code.
Yeah, but like, and I do think that he sees himself that way, but the way he acts is so contradictory to that.
Yeah. Like, I'm not disagreeing with your points that there's like there are ways to go about this that were quote unquote more moral, but I think he does have, I mean, like we all do, a certain level of justification in his head.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, everybody does. I just think it's bonkers how he unprompted goes from, sure, supplying alcohol for a party, whatever. That I don't really care about, to be honest with you. But the jump to then stealing his dad's drugs stealing his dad's drugs, making August sell them for him, and then being pissed that somebody got caught with the drugs and somebody will end up getting in trouble for it. Like, I don't see how those two line up. Of being like, did he think that nobody was ever going to find out about these drugs? Or was he just sort of not thinking and didn't think that far ahead?
Yeah. I think what I've really had to say kind of think links back to the music room scene, which I alluded last week that I have notes about Simon in here, but we really didn't have any notes about Wilhelm, where something I've observed about Simon, I don't know if we really have seen it before this point, but it is like a thing. And I'm not, and this is a difficult thing to do, but like, he doesn't have a tendency to venture empathy in moments of high emotion.
Yeah. It seems like he can't recognize that more than one party could be feeling a lot of things.
Yeah. Which is a very teenager thing to do, I will say.
Sure.
I think, I don't know, this might sound like a cop-out, but like at a certain point I stand here and I try to like reckon with the fact that like attempts to make Simon's actions fully coherent would, I think, reduce him to a simpler character than we've been given. And
I think it would as well, but I think that we do kind of have to reckon with the fact,
yeah, totally,
that he walked into this situation and is now upset that this situation is a situation.
Yeah. Yeah, like in this situation, he did play a bigger part in it than Wilhelm did, ultimately.
Yeah.
And I think, with Wilhelm, we talked about that tension getting resolved, and granted, I think it is probably like less explicit, but I think I like to read something in the kind of quote unquote like forgiveness of Wilhelm that is an acknowledgement like I was incredibly unfair and was taking out my own stress of the situation on you.
Yeah. I would like to believe that as well.
And I think it's like in the grand scheme of things, although it is like looming over a lot of the episode, this conflict represents only like the latter half of it too. And so it's, I think I come away at least standing for me physically just because of how much we've gotten before then. And
yeah, nothing I'm saying means that I don't stand him.
Right, yeah, no.
Otherwise this would be a character complicated, and we would just be like fighting.
Right, exactly. And I don't know, I think it is in his ability to come back after he is very upset in the moment and demonstrate that understanding and forgiveness at Lucia. I'd argue he's the strongest that he is the entire episode.
Yeah, I would agree with that, I think. I do think, as hard as it is to like forgive somebody all the time, it's also hard. It's like an added difficulty when you've lashed out at that person, whether fairly or unfairly.
Yeah.
Because you kind of have to like walk back on things that you've said.
Yeah, and we do see a certain amount of progression because we do have a scene of Simon literally just like throwing his phone out upon receiving a text from Villa onto his desk. But then when Villa reaches out at Lucia, he doesn't have so much pride that he is unwilling to follow him, hear him out, and understand, like, okay, this situation is incredibly messed up, and I really took it out on entirely the wrong person.
Yeah.
And that decision, I think, is backed up by the just many moments of tenderness we get before things blow up.
Yeah, I mean, it was a great ep for tenderness moments.
Right, yeah. I mean, that's the thing about 1-5 that we keep coming back to. It's like, it's a very Wilmon forward episode in terms of
big time
actually, like, progressing things, like, way quicker than all the other way more than all the previous episodes.
For sure. Yeah.
And so I think, following what we've been talking about in previous character episodes around Simon, there is a decision to feel his feelings and kind of embrace, like, what he is feeling in the moment, that I think we sort of finally see a potential double side of in this episode. Where it's like the same passion that gives him the strength at the start of the series to just, like, speak up in class and just address the prince of his country like a normal guy, does mean that in a moment of high stress, he doesn't really have, it seems, potentially the practice with taking a step back, intellectualizing. I don't know.
Yeah, I think that also just comes with being 16.
Right. Yeah. Because his upbringing will have prepared him to a degree.
Yeah. I mean, his mom seems like a very down-to-earth person.
Yeah.
And he generally seems like a fairly down-to-earth person.
Yeah.
I mean, everybody has their moments, especially as a teenager.
Right.
I certainly did at 16.
And
R.I.P. to my mother. But
right. And I think
my mom's still alive. That's not what I meant.
Something that I think we also have kind of not fully touched on until now is the degree to which Simon is blindsided in the music room scene.
Yeah.
And I don't say this out of, obviously, like, any sort of malice for Wilhelm. Like, he found out that same day too. But it is
right.
Like, having very little preparation for a complete tone shift in the dynamic that we've established all episode.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know how you do that more smoothly, though.
No,
to be honest.
No, very fair.
Hey, so I heard this. Like, that wouldn't.
Yeah,
help.
I'm not saying Wilhelm could have really done it any differently. I'm just saying, like, it also further contextualizes the emotional reaction, not in a way that fully excuses it, but, like, comprehending, like, hey, I am confronting my own short-sightedness right now, and we are, as we talked about in Revolution, like, it's a moment where we are fully reverting into our roles. Like, it's a moment where all of his, like, baggage with the upper class does come out in full force.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember what the exact line is, but, like, I'm not something because the prince fucked up.
Yeah, like, I think it's like I'm not gonna have my life ruined just because the prince fucked up, or like do what the royal family says or something like that.
Yeah.
And so
something with that vibe.
Yeah. And you're getting into a situation where he is just processing this stress in a way that his like brain can understand it, and it sucks, obviously. Like we keep talking about how much the music room sucks because it's a lot. But I also keep coming back to like it had to happen eventually. Like,
oh yeah, I mean, it did.
So when it's a matter of when, and I almost do think it is, weird as it sounds, healthy enough for it to happen this early.
Oh yeah, I mean, I've never been in a relationship. I have no interest in being in a relationship. We know this. Mm-hmm. I do generally think that it's better to air out things early, because the longer it goes on, the more it can feel like a betrayal.
Right. Yeah, like those big differences between you as a couple, like you're going to have to confront them sooner or
eventually
later.
They'll come to the surface one way or another.
Confronting them like a week into actually getting together is actually probably better in the long run.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, because could you imagine we just have this problem like looming over us for the remainder of the show?
That would be miserable. It'd be miserable.
Yeah, we wouldn't be able to enjoy it.
Yeah. But at the very least, this episode marks the end of Simon's drug dealer era.
It sure does. Can you imagine if he kept doing it, though? Can you imagine if he'd be like...
Well, then we'd be having a different conversation in future episodes, because...
It would be a completely different show.
Because I think whatever we want to say, and what we have said, like, this is a lesson learned on his part, I think.
Yeah. And a hell of a way to learn a lesson, I tell you what.
Yeah. It's like, it's a true reckoning, you know?
Yeah. For real, how can I learn a lesson in a very messy way?
The only real thing left to talk about in the episode, I would say, would be what happens at the very, very end regarding Simon.
Yeah.
And, like, this is, I mean, considering it comes at the very end, like, this conversation is very much not over, but getting a feel for where we're at, I guess, which I think we have covered to a degree earlier on in the cycle. Like, he didn't communicate to Sarah that he was seeing Micah because he knew it wouldn't go over well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah. I think, well, it's kind of fair to be like, I don't want my sister to know because he's done bad shit to us in the past and we agreed to not. I can't, like, I also recognize the fact that it was bound to happen where Micah would then reach out to Sarah because he would see that as an in back into their life. So that to me felt like one of those things that was, again, inevitable.
Yeah.
So, like, kind of blow up in his face.
Right. I mean, we're reaching a kind of a sort of theme in this episode of Simon demonstrating, like a teenager, as being someone who kind of lacks the foresight to see how things will fully pan out.
Yeah.
Which, I mean, like, I don't know really who has that amount of foresight in this show, to be honest.
Felice, maybe?
Maybe.
Oh, no, because she dated August.
Yeah, she dated August. And
maybe Maddie?
Maybe Maddie. Jury's still out. We don't have enough information, but... Yeah. She does seem to be smart enough to not get involved with anybody, so...
Amen. Amen. Goddamn.
But... yeah, I don't know. There's aspects of this that we can't fully cover in this episode, but I do think that in this case, we are coming back to a topic we've covered in previous cycles, which is Simon seeing himself as Sarah's protector.
Mm-hmm.
And the baggage that entails, considering she very much seems to resent him taking that role, at least in the present day. And so again, like you were saying, we're seeing it play out in really the only way it could.
Yeah.
Like it was gonna play out in a fairly dramatic fashion without proper communication. So.
Oh yeah, big time.
And it's like, I don't know. Like, again, we say for standings especially, is like we see how he got there, and it is a point where I like recognize a person who, coming back to the beginning of the episode, like does believe that he's doing his best, which I think he is doing his best, and that's kind of,
yeah,
it's like characters fuck up consistently in this show, and we gotta
you gotta extend them some grace,
right,
where grace is due. Unless you're August, then absolutely not.
Yeah,
it's just how I feel.
I am attempting to try to find a way to call this anything other than Simon the Tender. It's not good. It's not good.
No, that makes him sound like a meat. Makes him sound like a pork loin or something.
Yeah.
Christmas ham. Simon, what's the opposite of like being able to see the future?
But we can't choose it. We can't use a negative word for a standing is the problem.
Not being able to see the future isn't necessarily negative. It's just a fact.
That's fair. I mean, there's a really hoity-toity word for it.
Let's hear it, hoity-toity.
This would be Simon the Myopic.
The Myopic?
Yeah. It's another word for, like, short-sighted. But, like, it's the technical term. Yeah.
What's
it's
for farsighted?
Or is it... Because I think, because it's like there's the colloquially what you would define it as, just like not being able to see objects that are far away, like myopic. But it was there's nearsightedness, which is myopia, but in like a more metaphorical sense, you have lacking imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight.
Interesting.
Yeah.
On today's episode of Anton Teaches Margaret English. Let's see. Simon.
Also, farsightedness is hyperopia.
Hyperopia. That sounds like a made-up word. Simon I don't know.
Yeah.
Not tender though. It makes it sound like a meat.
No, yeah, because I'm like, what's a good trait that he has in this episode?
He is forgiving.
Yeah, I was circling around that one. Yeah, Simon the Forgiving.
I think that's good.
Yeah, cool. I don't know. You got anything else?
I don't think so.
Cool. Another short one, but listeners know what to expect with character ups at this point.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for listening. If you'd like to keep up to date with when we release new episodes and other pod-related announcements, you can check out our Instagram or our threads at People Don't Talk About. Our next episode will be Character Assassination for August, so stay tuned. And with that, all that's left to say is, let's start a revolution, baby.